estimates have always seemed to conflate time and complexity. We love to say that estimates, at least in our circles of web development, are supposed at least to be a measure of complexity of a task, but they're really about time. Whether or not I have to give an estimate for something that I'm going to be doing, I'm still going to go through that process of high-level architecture and then drilling down to the details, maybe before I start, maybe when I'm writing tests, maybe not. And it's another of my points about estimates is that the actual interesting bit that might actually happen, which is thinking long and hard about the problem you're about to tackle before actually starting and running headfirst into it, doesn't really have a lot to do with the estimate itself.
Hello and welcome to Hot Take, the show where either I or a guest come up with a hot take in tech and we discuss for about an hour around it. Today, my guest is Kevin, and he states that estimates are useless at best. Before we go deeper into that claim, Kevin, could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less, please?
Sure. Hi, and thanks for having me again. I'm Kevin. I've been doing Ruby on Rails since about 2012. I'm currently CTO at Spot.hr, where we produce digital tooling for SMEs who want to recruit quality people and find the best candidates. I'm also creating a thing called PrologueKit.com, which is a foundational layer for building Ruby on Rails applications in the modern stack with humans and agents. That's about it for the short presentation.
Cool. Coincidentally, the last guest I had on Hot Take also was building something to help build applications with agents.
Cool.
So that's a nice coincidence. That being said, the topic at hand is estimates are useless at best. I think I would agree with that statement, but I'm quite convinced that at least 50% of developers would strongly disagree with you. Can you back up that claim by feelings or data?
Feelings, certainly. Data, probably not. Since it's supposed to be a hot take, let's make it absolutely unverifiable. But I have a few core issues with estimates that we maybe should go through. Starting with the big one and the fact that estimates have always seemed to conflate time and complexity. We love to say that estimates, at least in our circles of web development, are supposed at least to be a measure of complexity of a task, but they're really about time. Any way that we want to dress it up with weird scales or proxies for time, it kind of still ends up being about time, and therefore creating an expectation of time. That's kind of my first issue with them.
Isn't that our fault? For me, the distinction you make here about estimates being either complexity or time stand especially in the XP, Scrum, Agile world, in the sense that they try to decorrelate those two concepts and actually obfuscate the meaning of a t-shirt or of a point or whatever. Isn't it the fault of the developers that we allowed, I'm going to say management. I don't want to sound mean towards people who manage, and I actually manage a team, so I'm being mean about myself.
Let's give it a minute.
Isn't it the fault of the developers that we allowed them to understand that one probably meant half a day, although one can mean half a day or 2 months, to be fair?
I'm not sure. I think there might be part of responsibility in developers and engineers in allowing this to happen, but that's a whole kind of worm. If we go down the road of what did we allow to happen, it's a completely different episode, but still controversial. But I think that there's a willingness on both sides to decouple time from complexity and talk about one when we're really talking about another. And I'm sure that it's satisfying something on the side of management, but it might also be satisfying something on the side of, let's say, production.
It definitely does, in the sense that I feel like part of the thing that makes a lot of developers tick is answering a problem. And when you ask me how much time X is going to take, or my first instinct is, okay, I need to solve that problem. So I'm going to say something. So in that sense, probably does satisfy a bit the ego or the need to please of the developers, right?
Yeah, there's a rampant issue of people pleasing in our community. I've been there. I've been a people pleaser. I've been in recovery for a couple of years now.
At some point, I was gonna term it an addiction, and then I thought better of that. But since you're making the analogy, yes, there is this addiction of pleasing people.
There's a little dopamine release. Yeah, we want to appear competent, and we want to appear a team player, and we want to appear like part of something. And it's a great motivation, but it's also super easy to exploit.
I don't want to get bogged down too much on what you said was the first point. So let's move on, and we can always circle back to this issue.
Well, the second kind of flows from there, in that if we agree, at least partly, on the fact that an estimate of complexity is an estimate of time in disguise, then there's something weird that happens, especially if we want to people please, where the estimate sort of turns into an implicit contract, where we didn't really say 3 days. It's not really 3 days, but somebody, at least the assignee, maybe expect themselves or somebody else expect them to have it done in 3 days. And I know this happened because it's happened to me, it's happened to teammates, and it's happened to team members I was managing. So I know that it's a widespread problem. It's somewhat even worse when we're not even really thinking about days, but somehow that has to be translated into days at some point, mentally or subconsciously.
Yeah, sure. I mean, everywhere I've been where they use either scrum points or t-shirt sizing, it's time this guy does something else. Let's be clear. Right. Like, we know that half a t-shirt size is half a day. One t-shirt size is between a day and a half. XL is whatever. Like, people make the conversion to time every time. So that, like, sure. And there is the implicit agreement of, like, even if you don't mean it, because I do a conscious effort of talking about orders of magnitude. So I will never say this is going to take a day or 2 days or 3 days or a week. It's a couple of days, about a week, a few weeks, a few months. Those are my scales, right? Because I do talk in time more than in complexity. But even then, like, if I say a couple of weeks can balloon into a couple of months fast. And people, when I say a couple of weeks, expect a couple of weeks, which is in part logical, because that's the expectation I'm setting, right?
I agree so far. But what happens in the highly probable case that the estimate is wrong? Assume we're dealing in a relatively short scales, like half a day or 2 days. By like implicitly committing to an implicit contract that may or may not have been expressed in actual time, I kind of want to make it work, lest I lose some credibility, lest something bad's gonna happen if I don't do it. But then bad stuff can happen. Like, in the best of cases, the estimate was correct and nothing happened and you got it on time. And this is less frequent than I would love. Second case, the estimate is close, but something happens. Any one of many things that can happen did happen, like, well, it's your task, but you were late because of something, or you were sick, or you were absent for any reason, or somebody else was not there and you had to pick up the slack, or something higher priority came up, or massive bug, or priorities shifted, or there was a meeting and then another meeting and then time got eaten up. And then you can't make it. You can't make the 3 days or whatever it was. And the sort of vicious part of this is, at least that's my experience. I'm going to speak mostly from personal experience. Then I feel bad. And I don't feel competent because I said I would have done a thing in 3 days and I didn't. And the even more vicious thing that can happen after that is, well, I'm going to make it work whatever it takes. And whatever it takes could mean cutting corners in the software itself, or it could mean cutting corners in socializing at work or in my personal life. And I have done all of this. I know that it happens. So therein lies for me like the biggest problem. It's an implicit contract, and a lot of people, including engineers themselves, tend to do whatever it takes to make them work.
Yeah, I agree. There is one reason you either forgot or glossed over, which is that the shining thing, the really shiny thing that looked really well made, that you thought you were going to be able to change in a day, actually was a turd that was really well polished over. And then now it's taking a month, right? Because I have to redo the whole thing. I do agree with you that there is this feeling of, I said I was going to do it at X time, and there is the personal part of, now I have to make it work. There is also the more perverse, like that, and that one is quite perverse. But there is also the, you promised me it was going to be made in X time, so now I made a commitment to X person, and the pile of shit keeps growing, and you are at the bottom of it, right?
But promised, and nobody actually promised. Yeah.
No, of course. Like, promise there is doing a lot of work, because
Yeah.
you said it's going to take about 2 days probably. One way I found to get out of jail from that is that when people ask me for and I realize I'm privileged to be able to do it, because I've worked at places that were, like with all places, had problems here or there, because nothing is perfect, but were really sane to work at. When people push me for an accurate estimate, I always tell them, I can lie to you if you want. And if they insist, I give them a number, but I state them, I'm going to lie to them. An estimate is like a precise estimate is a lie. With experience, I do believe that you can have a good batting average at order of magnitude. Yeah, a couple of days rarely turns into 6 months, although it can. But with experience, more or less, you know where it is, right?
Yeah. I had a formula at some point where when I needed to give estimates, I did like time I really thought it was going to take times 2 times an order of magnitude, something like that.
I've not done real estimates for such a long time.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm in the position where I'm the one who would get the estimates from people, kind of. And I don't really ask for estimates. Like, I ask for progress once they started, because I do think that estimates at the beginning of a project are the most useful to have, the most useless to have.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you advance, the less unknowns you have. And so the closer you can get to, okay, this is roughly gonna take this, like the second half of the project, we are more able to know the order of magnitude or the approximate time of release, right? And so the way I do it is we start, and then we can always either stop because it's not worth it anymore. But more importantly, once we start, we can start saying, okay, I'm starting to know what's happening, so I can say this might happen soon or not soon, basically. But yeah, it's been so long that I don't give estimates other than, yeah, this is about a few months, or this is about a couple of weeks. We're talking about the bad part it has in developers, because estimates come from a push from business. Like,
Yeah.
developers would not estimate if they were not forced to, is a big word, but like asked to. Is it useful for business, or do you think it's also useless?
Not that I know.
Why?
Like having been both, I have no use for estimates.
Okay.
either as a team lead, either as a way to prioritize or strategize. It's never gonna enter in my reasoning. What I do instead is I choose one single priority and I cut as much scope, as I can from it, and then I go in that direction and then and reevaluate every week or so.
How big is your team?
Small.
I think you were gonna answer my next question before I asked it. Does that hold true also for teams of 100, 200, 300 people?
It can probably. I know it works for some companies that are in the 50 to 100 range. I don't know how much it scales past the 100 and the thousands, but I don't think it has to. I don't think we have to reach a scale where estimates are necessary.
Because my thinking here is that, and I have the same feeling as you because we have worked in very similar companies. So unless crazy shit is happening, companies of that size are basically agile by nature, in the sense that fairly small, everyone can talk to the C, whatever. Everyone fits in one table at lunch. Things change rapidly because things change rapidly, and so you're forced to learn to adapt as a team. And so basically, you're agile without a capital A, if you want to say it that way. And so deciding what I'm going to do week by week works really well because I can actually talk to everyone that needs to decide that, right? The more layers we add to that, maybe the decision takes 3 weeks to come. And now I need a buffer of 3 weeks of stuff that I have to do. And how can I know how much stuff is 3 weeks if I don't estimate it, right?
Yeah, but I agree. But the key problem there is layers. There's a way to grow in headcount and company size without adding that many layers. And I think, and maybe that's the most controversial part of all, that some layers need to have the estimates and the prioritization metrics and the what have you. And these layers are somewhat in the middle of strategy and execution, and they seem to not have a full grasp on either.
It's a really nice way of insulting every middle manager that's listening to us.
I've worked on it a long time.
I do agree with you that in the sense that, yes, you can grow with less layers, or at least with decisions that happen faster, because you could have those layers if you empower them enough. It's not a problem, in the sense that the problem is how much lag is it between the signal and the decision, right? But, and I don't want to be in the real world person, but in the real world, Facebook exists and they have a ton of layers.
Yeah, but again, is that really working well for them?
Define working well.
Not laying off 10,000 people every 6 months.
We are opening a can of worms. I'm willing to go into it if you are willing to go into it. I don't think those layoffs are an execution problem. They're not being laid off because the company is not producing what it should. They're being laid off for a myriad other reasons, going from we need to free up cash because now everything is AI and we need to get cash into AI for reasons.
Way before that, yeah.
Or even we need to show profits. So in December, we lay off 10,000 people and now, oh, fuck, we have way more profit. We overhired. Actually, we don't need that many people. But I don't think it is that much cutting off dead weight as financial decisions being taken way above the level of the signal.
Sure, I agree with you on that. However, a perverse effect of hiring a lot of people without really thinking that you're going to have to fire in 3 years when the craze is over, is that you have to come up with crazy management systems. Or when you grow fast for any reason, you have to come up with crazy management systems. You have to abstract out a lot of situational awareness about what's actually happening in your product. I get that. But once again, I think that estimates among many other things. And the hierarchy structure that's generally chosen are the wrong solution for that.
I mostly agree in the sense that it's a solution, probably not the correct one for a problem that you created or that the structure creates, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to build a mountain with the dirt I'm digging at the same time. And so the mountain is less and less useful because I'm more and more deep, right?
Yeah, and building a quarry instead.
Yeah. There is a part of me that can't comprehend that if some devs or most devs, because the feeling I'm getting is that you say for all devs and for all businesses, estimates are useless.
Yeah, they've proven to be useless for me as a developer, for most of my teammates that I've known in the past almost 15 years. And they have proven useless in any business where I had any sort of strategic or managerial capacity. It could just be me or the people I hang out with and decide to work with. I don't doubt that it's helpful. It's helpful to some people. I'd like to bounce backwards on something that you said, that it's useful to some developers, and I'd like to explore that point of view because it's completely alien to me, if I'm honest.
So here I'm not talking about my experience in the sense that I am actually going to talk a bit about my experience, and I'm remembering when I was a junior, estimates gave me a sense of scale. And in that sense, they did help me, right? But I do believe that you and I've been playing a bit the devil's advocate throughout this conversation, but have a similar point of view on what programming, developing, whatever you want to call it, is and how it should be done and what's the goal, etc., etc. And so estimates kind of fit into that world model we have of what a development team should be and should act as. I've been exposed to people that see developing or programming or whatever anyone wants to call it as a completely different activity than what I see. And I've seen people actually state to me that they are comfortable with estimates and that they need estimates. And that has been either people that were in a position of managing teams or people that were actually in a position of developing, where they liked that structure. And I think I mentioned to you off camera at the beginning as well that I don't function well with really fleshed out specs, but I've seen a lot of people that actually function well with really fleshed out specs. And the correlation between the two, I think, is quite high.
Right? What do you think they enjoy about the having to do the job of the estimates or the really fleshed out spec, which I guess one would bring the other because you'd have to do the job of going through the spec and thinking about it. And do you think it's a matter of security of
Yeah, of security and structure, like in the sense that you've mentioned before, something that is kind of a core tenet of Agile of basically I take the next priority, take away as much as I can, small increments, reassess whenever I feel like I've done enough, right? Basically is how you described it. That is a really uncertain position.
yeah.
And it requires you to see the way to work or the profession as something quite uncertain, quite exploratory, and not everyone works that way or clicks that way in the sense that, and I'm going to take examples from other professions, but I know lawyers that are incendiated when I talk to them about how I work. Like I tried the mob programming, ensemble programming not so long ago. And when I talked about it with my sisters, one of them is a lawyer, they were like, what the fuck are you talking about? What is that? Right. And I do think that the programming profession or developing profession or engineering, software engineering, whatever you want to call it, profession is diverse enough that a lot of people actually do need that structure and fit very well within the pattern of I'm actually going to flesh out the whole thing and think about, okay, adding the button is going to take me 5 minutes. If I add the pull request, I know that that person does them fairly quickly. So it's one day. And then if I do this, and this is the API I'm going to call up to, and this is the contract, and they actually flesh out the whole thing. And estimates are still a lie, but they do need that structure of, okay, this is how I advance and this is my deadline, right?
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So maybe that's the important part. And my experience is that you would do that anyway. Whether or not I have to give an estimate for something that I'm going to be doing, I'm still going to go through that process of high level architecture and then drilling down to the details, maybe before I start. Maybe when I'm writing tests, maybe not, because I don't do TDD all the time. Less and less so, if I'm honest. But other topic, and it's another of my points about estimates is that the actual interesting bit that might actually happen, which is thinking long and hard about the problem you're about to tackle before actually starting and running headfirst into it, doesn't really have a lot to do with the estimate itself.
I agree with that. I agree. I do think that the estimate brings another layer of certainty or another layer to attach yourself to on top of the thing, of the actual planning, which, to be fair, I do TDD because I like to think as little as I can whilst I code. And TDD allows me that because I'm thinking whilst I write the tests, which is a different thinking, right? But knowing that the thinking needs to happen, some people like to have it thought out first. That gives them the structure, and that gives them at least the feeling that they can estimate how long it will take. And so that estimation again gives them something to attach themselves to, in the sense that some people work better with deadlines.
That's a possibility.
And in the end, whilst agreeing with you that an estimate is not a promise, it is a deadline, sort of.
Sort of. I have another theory, maybe. Let's imagine that I'm not quite sure about myself, and I give that rarely happens. I I give an estimate, and whoever is in charge agrees with me. The CTO or the team lead or the product manager or whosoever. Maybe there's something to the reassurance that happens where, okay, I'm not completely off by a factor of magnitude. I've not missed something crucial to that feature, and I'm not gonna run into a wall later. Maybe I can sort of see value into that. What do you think?
I feel like we are in agreement on the substance of the thing and not in the form, in the sense that, yes, it does give that reassurance, but on the other hand, it doesn't tell you you're not an order of magnitude off. Because you're the one doing the job of actually estimating. The person who is signing off has no fucking clue of what's going on unless they are actually doing the work with you.
Right. That's a great point. They don't know. You could be off by a mile and they wouldn't know. I have a great anecdote about this, by the way. A few years ago, like I was having a really, really bad day for I don't remember what, and somebody off in a Slack DM asked me an estimate about something, or relatively off the cuff. And again, if person ends up listening to this, I'm sorry about this. And I said 3 months because I was very frustrated. I said 3 months for a task that reasonably would have taken 3 days. And nobody questioned me, and everybody ran with it. And that was kind of a moment in my relationship with estimates.
I see what you mean. I smiled when you said 3 months, because 3 months is this is expensive measure. Like when someone asks me something that I know is like, it might take a week if everything goes well, but everything is not going to go well, it's 3 months.
Yeah, but then something happened in my brain, and I said 3 months, and everybody ran with it, and this was a problem for nobody. And the very next thought in my head was, what the hell are you hassling me for a half day about? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I do think it comes into that planning part they probably need to tell someone, we will be ready
they
to
do.
start the next thing by that date or whereabouts that date, right? Because that's something that businesses do have deadlines, and
Absolutely.
some of
Yeah.
them are artificial or most of them are artificial, but they exist nonetheless. At the end of the day, money is artificial, but it's still a thing. Deadlines are mostly artificial, but they're still a thing. And so being able to say, okay, we will be done by Q2, Q3 does have a benefit, right? Like, so probably that person that was hassling you for half a day had someone hassling them for 2 days.
And that's entirely the problem from before about the layers of management that entirely creates that issue of somebody somewhere in the middle of the stack doesn't know that 3 months is an absolutely ridiculous amount of time for what we're talking about. Like, if everybody knew about both the reality of implementation and the strategic value of what's being implemented.
I agree. Like, it's absurd that we can be off by 2 orders of magnitude.
And by the way, this is in like at the time I'm between 70 and 100 people company, so not a huge place.
Yeah, and it could happen in a 10 people company. Like,
Absolutely, yeah.
everything feels black today because it's rainy outside. I'm tired, and like you're asking me about this fucking dumb shit that is mostly
Barely
copying
fine.
YAML,
Yeah.
and I really don't want to do it. And I have to touch the DB on top of that, and I have to create a migration that might cause problems. It probably won't, but it's gonna take 4 months. Leave me alone. Like I get that estimate. Probably when you realized that it wasn't gonna be 3 months, because yeah, you're the only person that can estimate is the person that either knows what needs to be done or is going to do the investigation of what needs to be done. Anyone else is just saying shit, right? Probably when you realized it's not going to take 3 months, you said something.
Oh, I knew. No, it's worse than that. I knew that it wasn't going to take 3 months from the start, and I thought they were understanding that this was a joke.
Nice
That's
one.
even worse, man.
I had not understood that part.
Yeah, no, so that makes it worse somehow. Because in my like already very busy mind, I was okay, they will put a laugh emoji and we'll laugh about it, and then I'll say 2.5 weeks. But that did not happen, and that was kind of a wake up call.
There is a detail that I think you're glossing over that, like you said, laugh emoji. If this was written communication, the mix-up can happen even faster.
Yeah.
Because the distance is even greater, not only from the communication perspective, in which you lose like a lot of context, but even like written communication is hard in the sense that you have to, like you say 3 months, and I actually have to parse 3 months and understand 3 months instead of I just got an answer, it's fine.
Yeah, this is a problem on top of a problem. But again, I'm gonna go back to this is a breeding ground for problems on top of problems, most of which wouldn't happen otherwise.
I think we made our point that according to us, estimates suck and create problems at all the levels involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be okay with trying to talk solutions? Like, what do you do
Absolutely,
when
yeah.
people come to you and ask you, hey, we need that done in 3 months? How long is it going to take?
Okay, first I'm gonna ask why 3 months, because I'm not just gonna accept 3 months because we've just gone through of why this could be a problem. I'm gonna ask why 3 months. If behind 3 months there's like a hard deadline, like an exposition or a pitch or like anything like real tangible external that we have zero control over, then I'm gonna ask what can we do in 3 months? Like what's the safest thing that we can do in 3 months and be sure that it's done in two, and then we have 1 month of buffer.
Interesting, because I treat external deadlines or external requests for deadlines as you need this to happen in about 3 months. Usually I don't treat them as a hard thing. But my solution is, regardless of how long I think it might take, is okay, we stop everything and we start today. As soon as you give me a deadline, this becomes the only thing we work on until this is done.
Probably, yeah.
Which makes them reconsider a lot of times, oh, that deadline is not that important.
Ah. But just to make sure that my point is that it's the strategy that has to change if there's a hard deadline. It's not discussing the implementation, and that's something that can probably not be done, certainly not at the engineering level, and most likely hardly at the mid project manager level. But then this is something that has to happen at the executive level for a company big enough, or like the highest position possible of responsibility towards that project.
I've worked myself into deadlines. I get what you say, that deadlines will come a lot of times imposed by, I just want my sales in Q2 to look good, or whatever, right? Or we want to say that we are on the
Then it's
AI
not a
train
deadline.
and we need to, yeah, sure. But a lot of deadlines feel real to people. And for me, that makes them some kind of weight, in the sense that even to the engineering team, right? Like I've coded myself into deadlines at least a couple of times of, fuck, if we have a client now that has 2 orders of magnitude more volume than the clients I'm used to, the app is gonna tank. So as soon as there is rumors of we might sign someone 2 orders of magnitude above, it's like, okay, if this advances, you need to warn me and we stop everything to go there. And that's a deadline.
Yeah, but that's also a problem of institutional knowledge in general, right? Like in an ideal world, whoever is signing very big account will have somewhat of an insight of what it's gonna do to the product. And I know I'm saying that, and I know it's most likely wrong, but it should be right.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of assumptions there.
It's not assumption. I know that this doesn't happen. My point is that it should.
At some point, you mentioned that, like when I said you have to do something in 3 months, first you questioned the deadline, which probably the sanest way to do. My way is basically, okay, we stop everything. Is it still a deadline? And then you said I strip everything. Like, what is the least we can do? Do you have a way of doing that?
It's pretty much discussion. There's no framework for it. There's purely challenging expectations. If it comes with a design attached, there's a lot of challenging to do, because we tend to forget the weight and the cost of design elements when they're turned into actual features. If there's a vision that includes, I don't know, say multiple territories, can we stagger the territories? If there's a release cycle, can we release in a way that impacts fewer people at a time? If there's some nice to haves that are presented as critical but that really aren't, and they are every time, we need to highlight those too. If there's any external wait time, that time, can we do something about it? Can we do something in the meantime? If there are things that we've considered like true for a super long time but would bear rethinking in a drastically changing landscape of our profession, maybe it's the right time for it. Until we have something that's manageable and that I know is not going to send me into working up until 3 a.m. on a Saturday because I'm too old for this now.
Yeah, sure. Well, been there, done that, never again.
But it's generally discussion, more like an established framework, and generally that's enough.
I see. I found a lot of success doing the Moscow prioritization thing, in which it forces, like, what I say is, like, if you're saying I have 3 months, basically I'm gonna plan for a month-ish of effort on the must, and that's the only thing I'm gonna promise you. The rest I'm probably not gonna do, but this is the order in which I'm not gonna do it. And I found like that cut scope a lot, because then they're forced to think, okay, what do I absolutely need for that? You said something there, things we thought were true for a long time, but might bear reconsidering. It's made me think of one of my biggest pet peeves about estimates. They stick around. Most people that do estimates, or most startups do, I know someone who's gonna kill me for saying that, this next thing, but Scrum like things. Like, they don't do Scrum, but they've heard they have to do sprints. and they've heard they have to do stand-ups, and they
Right.
it's not Scrum. We agree on that, but they do Scrum-like things or things they
We know
think
that.
are Agile or Scrum or whatever. And so they do their sprint planning. They estimate we can do 30 effort. So they estimate for 30 effort. Obviously, they don't do 30 efforts because estimates are a lie. But those that were not done have an estimate now. And they might be picked up a year from now, and that estimate stuck around. And so we don't need to estimate it anymore, except it was a fucking year ago. That is less than worthless now.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves about, in general, the backlog part, but more particularly estimates.
I agree with it. About the changing landscape, there's one maybe last point that could be interesting regarding estimates is that we now live in a day and age where AI can do pretty much any task in less than 15 minutes. Do we estimate on those?
I basically don't do estimates, but estimates have the granularity must be at least a day, a couple of days. If not, it's either a task or a bug in my head or a snack. Can I go into a tangent?
Yeah, sure.
We found a super cool concept at Recover. Basically, everyone has features, everyone has bugs, right? But there are those little things that everyone wants you to do. They're not a bug, they're not a task. It's like, this button should be just a tiny bit wider. Or wouldn't it be great? Yeah. And those are fun to do because you're basically, it took me 15 minutes. That person is so happy. We call them snacks, and they're like palate cleansers when you need, like, oh, I have 1 hour left. I'm not going to start that big thing. And we have a list of snacks, and I'm so happy with how that works. And those don't need estimation. Those are like less than half a day.
I have a bit different term for these. I also noticed that, but I call them paper cuts. In the sense that if I log on every morning and I see them and it's a paper cut, and then I don't do them, and then I see them the next day and it cuts again, until I finally do them. But priorities and estimates and backlogs and whatever, I keep getting cut every day.
Yeah, I see what you mean. We separated them from that list in the sense that they are not prioritized anymore. It's the promise to the exterior world is this might happen. We don't know when, we don't know how, but they might happen. And so it does allow us to track it and give them a more positive vibe than this is just painful.
Yeah, my position there is like, if it takes less than 5 minutes, deploy included, to solve a problem, just solve it, which leaves about 4 minutes for execution. So it's pretty.
Sure, the interruption counts. So you need to have a way of handling not everyone being interrupted for 5-minute tasks every time. But I do agree with that. I'd even be less strict than 5 minutes. If it's gonna take an hour, go. If you have time and it's gonna take an hour, go
still
right
pretty valuable. Like if it's been pissing somebody off, most importantly, perhaps you, for days, weeks, months, the value of getting that thorn out of your side is multiples of the time it takes to fix it. And yeah, that's a thing that rarely transpires in standard prioritization.
Again, that's something, and I think it's another topic, but I tend to avoid prioritization other than this is the main thing. The little things will never get prioritized, and probably they are the ones where you get the most bang for your buck because they are so little, right? Like, I'm going to spend an hour on this, make someone happy. Basically, the value is quote unquote infinite within reason. How we work at Recover today, we don't do most of the rituals that exist. Like we just have one main priority. The rest, we might have secondary priorities that are going on, but those are always interruptible. And so the little things just get taken care of because the only thing that cannot be interrupted is the main priority. And yeah, those have like a lot of value and don't need estimate. Like nothing needs estimating, but something is either important or not. How do you handle those small things that don't need estimation? Like, how do you make sure they get done?
I just do them until there aren't any anymore.
Have you been in a state where there aren't anymore?
Yeah.
You must teach me that because I find them infinite.
Yeah, you can find some, but that's a different episode because that's at least an hour's worth. But the easiest way is to never let them get in the first place. And if you're coming in late, if your obligations of priority and so on, of course it's hard. But like if you see it, like snipe one. Like if it takes 2 minutes and you got 10 developers and they all snipe one a day, like they're not gonna be around for infinite time. And the other part of it is aggressive standardization, like really aggressive. And that's what I do with Prolog. It aims to standardize a bunch of things so aggressively that some problems just never creep up.
I'm gonna call you out on that because part of it was not a cop out, but you don't let them get in. Yes, but my application has been there for 6 years before I got it there, right? And like,
Yeah.
obviously, I would
know.
like everything to be tested and be done in TDD, but like that's not a thing. And annoying shit happened because like when 10 people have worked on an application, things are not standardized, and the time it would take for a small team to actually get to zero actually piles on.
Oh, I know. But at the very least, I'm not going to say it's too late because that would be super pessimistic. And I think a team could get there, but it probably starts by putting a foot down somewhere and saying, okay, that particular mistake, we don't do it anymore, and we don't let it go. And every time we see it, we squash it, just for one mistake, just for one instance of a thing. And this one is going to be done at some point, maybe in the future, maybe in 3 weeks, maybe in a month. Then you pick another, and so on. And maybe in 6 months, this is something that's trivial enough to maybe give to an AI agent to monitor without introducing risk. Maybe in 2 years of doing that, then it's clean.
Yeah, sure. Like for sure, it needs to be a long-term effort.
Yeah. Of course, it's not going to be done in a sprint or a cycle or whatever amount of weeks. But it begins with intent, and on the parts you have control over by not using the fact that it's already dirty to let it get more dirty, which is the thing that's super easy to do. Right? I get it.
Yes and no. It's a whole other episode. I'm teasing it out a lot of episodes here, but I think we disagree on the value of standardization. In the sense that, yeah, it might squash a lot of things. It also forces you to tackle problems in a way that is not the most efficient nor the most comprehensible. Sometimes, or enough times that for me it's a bother.
All right, fair enough.
Teasing for a future episode because
Sure.
that one I think in here we agreed on basically everything, and I was playing devil's advocate. In the other, I think we have an actual debate.
Cool.
Because we do disagree. We're almost at the hour point. Time has flown quite fast. Anything else you want to say about how estimates suck?
Sure. Maybe I can conclude with the original idea that it's the wrong solution to a problem that doesn't really exist by saying that the problem that shouldn't really exist is that somebody somewhere needs the absolutely imprecise math of estimates to make decisions. And those decisions using estimates probably aren't great either if we consider all we've said about estimates. So the core problem is maybe not that estimate sucks. They do, but the problem is that they're still used. They're still considered like currency for something.
Kevin, it was so nice to have this discussion with you, which was really, really interesting, and I think can bring a lot of clarity, or at least of thought, to people on how they use estimates, why they use estimates, and if they should use estimates. So thank you so much for this episode.
Thanks a lot for having me. I had a great time. And maybe just one last thought, core concept behind all that. Just think, why are we doing this once in a while? It helps.
Fair enough. Goodbye.